The border did not look like a border. There were no walls, no glowing lines, no warning buoys. Space looked normal. Cold stars, distant nebulae, silent dark. The navigation map showed only a wide gray zone marked with old text that few still trusted. Human-controlled space. Access, unknown. The alien task force drifted forward anyway. They had come in peace, they told themselves. Or at least that was the official report. 5 ships from 5 different species, sent to investigate rumors that refused to die. Rumors that a forgotten species still existed beyond that empty stretch of stars. A species that had once fought wars no one liked to remember. Humans. Most believed they were gone. Burned out. Locked away. Too violent to survive their own nature. The fleet commander, a tall, scaled being named Koresh, studied the forward display. No signals. No traffic. No patrols. Confirm, Koresh said. We have crossed no recognized sovereign border. The navigation officer hesitated. By modern law, no? By legacy maps, yes. Koresh dismissed it with a slow flick of his tail. Legacy maps also say stars can be angry spirits. The fleet continued. The moment they crossed the invisible line, everything changed. Sensors went dark, not with alarms, but with silence. Engines still burned, but their readings were no longer updated. External cameras showed stars that were slightly wrong. Positions shifted by fractions that made no sense. Timestamps disagreed with each other. One ship tried to send a signal back to known space. Nothing left. Another tried to jump out. The drive failed without error. Fear spread fast, quiet and sharp. Then the voice came. It did not come through speakers. It came from inside every ship at once. Calm. Clear. Humans. Unidentified vessels, the voice said. You have entered restricted space. Koresh froze. The bridge crew stared at each other. No translation lag. No distortion. The voice continued. Your presence has been recorded. Your weapons are locked. Your exits are suspended. One of the captains shouted in panic. That's impossible. We didn't detect. Detection was not required, the voice replied. Koresh stepped forward. This is Commander Koresh of the Exploratory Task Force. We come without hostile intent. There was a pause. Not a delay. A pause, like someone thinking. Intent is noted, the voice said. Intent does not guarantee departure. On the tactical display, one of the ships blinked out. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. The remaining ships erupted in chaos. Where did it go? Scan the area. We're being attacked. Koresh slammed his claw down. Silence. The human voice returned, unchanged. One vessel has been detained, it said. No harm has occurred. Detained. Koresh swallowed. By what authority? By survival, the voice answered. State your purpose. The task force had rehearsed this moment for weeks. Words about diplomacy, curiosity, shared history. But standing inside a space that felt like a closed fist, Koresh chose honesty. We were sent to confirm whether humanity still exists. Another pause. You have confirmed it, the voice said. The stars shifted again. Something massive moved in the dark, not into view, but into awareness. The crew felt it more than saw it. Like standing beneath a mountain in fog. You will now wait, the voice said. Movement will be interpreted as a threat. Koresh did not argue. Minutes passed. Or maybe seconds. Tom no longer behaved properly. Then the human voice spoke again, quieter somehow. Your maps are old, it said. But not wrong. A projection appeared on every bridge. A simple image. A border sphere surrounding hundreds of systems. This space was sealed after the last relay war, the voice said. You call it a myth. We call it a cost. Koresh stared at the image. If you survived, why hide? Because we learned, the voice replied. Another image replaced the first. Ruined worlds. Burned fleets. Human ships standing alone against impossible odds. We bled so the galaxy could forget fear, the voice said. When peace came, we closed the door. Koresh felt something cold settle in his chest. Then why speak to us at all? Because you crossed the line, the voice said. And because you did not fire. A new symbol appeared. The lost ship, still intact, frozen in a lattice of light. Some enter human space by mistake, the voice continued. Some by greed. Some by force. The image shifted again. Wreckage. Survivors drifting in pods. Distress calls echoing unanswered. Only those who understand the rule are allowed to leave. Koresh lowered his head. And the rule is? The answer came instantly. No one enters human space uninvited, the voice said. Unless coming back was never the intention. The detained ship vanished from the display, this time reappearing far behind the fleet, weapons stripped, engines restored. A message followed. Your surviving vessels will be escorted out, the voice said. You will remember this encounter. Your leaders will debate it. Some will ignore it. The stars began to realign. Sensors flickered back to life. But others will test us, the voice finished. The presence in the dark did not fade. I watched. And when they do, the human voice said softly, we will remind them why the door was closed. The transmission ended. The fleet found itself drifting at the edge of known space once more, intact, alive, shaken. Behind them, human space returned to silence. But the memory of that calm voice lingered. And every being on those ships understood the same terrifying truth. They had not been threatened. They had been spared. And next time, humanity might not be in a forgiving mood. The report reached the Galactic Council in fragments. That alone unsettled them. Data packets arrived corrupted but deliberate, as if someone had chosen which pieces were allowed to survive transmission. Sensor logs contradicted each other. Timestamps overlapped. Weapon systems showed commands issued that no crew member remembered giving. But the testimony was consistent. Human space was not empty. It was controlled. The council chamber buzzed with restrained disbelief as Commander Koresh stood at the center platform, surrounded by representatives from a dozen species. He looked older than when he had left. His scales had dulled, and one eye no longer focused properly. You are claiming, said a counselor from the Threx Dominion, that 5 modern warships were disabled without combat. Without warning, Koresh replied. Without detectable weapons. Without resistance. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Another counselor leaned forward. And you expect us to believe this was done by humans? Koresh did not hesitate. They identified themselves as such. They spoke our languages without translators. They referenced a war none of you list as active history. The chamber quieted at that. The last relay war, Koresh continued. Your archives classify it as a multi-faction collapse event. No central aggressor. No decisive defense. He raised his claw and activated a projection. A map appeared. Relay routes burning out one by one. Entire sectors going dark. Human records, Koresh said, tell a different story. The council demanded proof. Koresh gave them what little he had. Images of human vessels. Angular, asymmetrical, built without ornament. Tactical readouts showing impossible reaction times. A single audio file of the human voice, calm and precise. One sentence echoed through the chamber. Intent does not guarantee departure. Some counselors laughed. Not because it was funny, but because disbelief was easier than fear. Humans were volatile, said an elderly delegate. Their psychology was unstable. They burned themselves out. They withdrew, Koresh corrected. After fighting alone. Silence followed. Then the council voted. Officially, the encounter was classified as an anomaly. Unofficially, 3 major powers began preparing expeditions. Curiosity was dangerous. Arrogance was worse. The first to move was the Varkesh Combine, a mercantile empire that believed borders existed to be tested. They sent a probe fleet, unmanned, packed with sensors and redundant drives. The probes entered human space in a tight formation. They transmitted for exactly 12 seconds. Then every probe turned around, simultaneously, and burned back toward Varkesh territory at maximum speed. When they crossed back into known space, they self-destructed. Engineered. Clean. Intentional. The Combine panicked. The council convened again. Automated defense, someone said. A last remnant system. Or a bluff, another replied. If they were truly powerful, why hide? Koresh said nothing. He watched the projection of human space rotate slowly above them. He noticed something others did not. Every time a ship entered, the border adjusted. Not expanded. Not contracted. Repositioned. As if it was watching where attention gathered. As if it was alive. While the council debated, something else happened, quietly, far from politics. A civilian transport vanished. It was a refugee vessel, fleeing a border conflict between 2 minor powers. Its jump drive malfunctioned mid-transit. Its exit vector dumped it across an unmarked region of space. Human space. The distress call was weak but continuous. Hundreds of non-combatants aboard. No weapons. No escorts. The galaxy waited for the scream. It never came. Instead, human space responded. Deep within the sealed region, systems activated that had not moved in decades. Observation arrays pivoted. Threat models recalculated. And for the first time since the door was closed, humanity debated intervention. On a human command station hidden inside a folded gravity well, officers stood in silence as the refugee ship drifted helplessly on the main display. They crossed without permission, one officer said. They did not choose it, another replied. A third voice spoke, older, slower. Intent matters. Data scrolled across the room, biological signatures, panic indicators, life support failure curves. They will not survive long, said the system's chief. The command authority nodded once. Open a corridor. Space bent. Not violently. Precisely. A human rescue vessel emerged, small compared to warships, but armored in ways the galaxy would not understand. It slipped into normal space beside the refugee transport. Human Marines boarded, not in power armor, not with drawn weapons, but with tools and medical kits. The refugees screamed when they saw them. Humans. The monsters from stories. But the humans did not speak of borders. They did not ask for allegiance. They stabilized reactors, reinforced hulls, and transferred civilians system by system. When hostile forces tracking the refugees arrived moments later, they found something waiting. They fired first. The human response lasted 3 seconds. No explosions. Every hostile ship lost propulsion, weapons, and navigation at once. They were left drifting, intact, helpless. A message broadcast across every frequency followed. This life was under our protection, the human voice said. Your pursuit violated that protection. The ships were left alive. The message spread faster than fear. The Council could no longer deny reality. Humanity was not isolationist. They were selective. And that terrified everyone. The Varkesh Combine made a choice that history would not forgive. They assembled a fleet, not probes, not diplomats, but warships. They declared human space an unlawful exclusion zone and announced a restoration of free passage. Their fleet crossed the border with weapons hot. Human space did not speak this time. It acted. The first combined ship lost cohesion, not destroyed, but unmade. Its structure separated at the atomic level and dispersed like dust. The second ship vanished entirely. The third was returned, instantly, into combined space, stripped bare, crew alive, systems gone. A human transmission followed, broadcast galaxy-wide. This is your warning, the voice said. We do not conquer. We do not expand. The fleet froze. You were allowed to forget us, the voice continued. You were allowed to believe we were gone. The remaining combined ships were gently pushed back across the border by forces no sensor could track. But forgetting the rule, the voice finished, was your mistake. The border was sealed again. In the aftermath, empires fell into silence. Trade routes shifted. Military doctrines were rewritten overnight. Children were taught new lessons. Do not chart human space. Do not test the line. And above all, if humans open the door for you, be grateful. If they close it, do not knock twice. Silence became policy. That was how the galaxy adapted. No declarations were made. No treaties were signed. Human space remained sealed, unnamed by official vote, yet marked in every navigation system with the same unspoken warning: do not deviate. But silence does not stop fear. It concentrates on it. In the months following the Varkesh humiliation, intelligence agencies worked without pause. Every scrap of historical data involving humanity was re-examined. Old war footage once dismissed as exaggeration was replayed frame by frame. Sensor anomalies previously blamed on equipment failure were reclassified. A pattern emerged. Humans never fought fair. They fought decisively. In a fortified research enclave near the Council core, analysts gathered around a projection showing the adjusted human border. It was not static. It curved subtly, reshaping itself around nearby traffic flows. It's not territory, one analyst said quietly. It's behavior. What does that mean? Another asked. It means they're not guarding space, the analyst replied. They're guarding outcomes. That realization unsettled even the most hardened strategists. Meanwhile, in the outer spiral, a different problem grew. The Kale Syndicate did not believe in myths. They were raiders, slavers, opportunists. They measured strength by plunder, not restraint. And in their eyes, human space was the richest untouched vault the galaxy had ever seen. Their leader, Warlord Drexel, studied the recordings of disabled fleets with contempt. No debris, he growled. No salvage. That means wasted force. His lieutenants shifted uneasily. Or controlled force, one said. Drexel snarled. Control is fear pretending to be strength. The syndicate assembled a strike group, not large enough to trigger attention, not small enough to be dismissed. Fast ships, hardened hulls, boarding crews ready. Their plan was simple. Slip in, take something, leave. Proof that the myth bled. When the syndicate crossed the border, nothing happened. No voice. No silence heavier than usual. Just stars. Drexel smiled. Advance, he ordered. They penetrated deeper than any fleet before them. Still nothing. Then the first crew member screamed. Not from pain, but confusion. My shadow's wrong, he shouted. It's moving before I do. Across the ships, systems began behaving oddly. Power rerouted without command. Doors opened where no one stood. Gravity fluctuated by fractions that made walking uncomfortable. Drexel ignored it. Boarding teams ready, he said. We'll take whatever station they're hiding. That was when the message arrived. Not to the fleet. To Drexel alone. It appeared on his personal display without authentication. You are not lost. You are being measured. Drexel laughed. Finally, he muttered. They talk. He keyed the reply. We come for profit. Nothing personal. The response came instantly. That is personal. Space folded. Not violently. Not visibly. The syndicate ships found themselves separated, not by distance, but by isolation. Each ship existed in its own pocket of warped geometry, unable to detect the others. Drexel's flagship drifted alone. A human vessel appeared in front of him. It did not decloak. It did not arrive. It was simply there. Angular. Matte black. Scarred like it had survived storms that never ended. Weapons ports remained closed. A human figure appeared on the view screen. Unarmored. Unimpressed. You crossed the line, the human said. And you knew why. Drexel leaned forward. If you're gods, strike me. If not, move aside. The human's eyes hardened, not with anger, but certainty. We are neither, the human replied. We are the reason gods stop intervening. Drexel's weapons fired. Nothing happened. The shots vanished mid-space, absorbed by distortions that did not register as shields. The human sighed. That answer was expected. With a gesture, the human ship acted. Drexel's flagship did not explode. Its weapons dissolved into inert matter. Its engines rewound to raw components. Its command deck was sealed, the crew trapped but unharmed. Across each isolated pocket, the same thing happened. No death. No escape. Moments later, every syndicate ship was expelled, violently but intact, back into known space, scattered across dozens of systems. Their crews survived. Their power did not. The human message followed, broadcast wide enough for spies to catch. Human space is not defended by walls, the voice said. It is defended by memory. The syndicate collapsed within weeks. Rivals smelled weakness. Former captives rebelled. Drexel himself was returned to his homeworld, alive, stripped of every enhancement, his fleet gone. The galaxy watched and learned. But the true test came not from raiders or empires. It came from desperation. A stellar phenomenon ignited near the fringe, an unstable star entering catastrophic collapse. Its gravitational waves threatened to tear through populated systems. Evacuation was impossible at scale. The only safe vector led through human space. The council argued for days. Some demanded they ask. Others insisted humans would never allow it. Millions would die waiting. Finally, a single council envoy ship was dispatched, unarmed, slow, broadcasting intent openly. It stopped at the border and waited. Hours passed. Then the voice returned, older than before, waited. You asked for a passage, it said. Yes, the envoy replied. To save lives. Silence followed. Then the border shifted. A corridor opened, narrow, precise. You may pass, the human voice said. But know this. The envoy held their breath. Once you see what we guard, the voice finished, you will never see us the same again. The ship entered. Beyond the border lay not emptiness, but infrastructure beyond imagination. Defensive arrays spanning systems. Evacuation routes pre-mapped. Human fleets positioned not for war, but containment. Humanity had been preparing for disasters the galaxy refused to acknowledge. They had not withdrawn. They had been standing watch. As the evacuation succeeded, whispers spread. Human space was not a threat. It was a shield. And shields, when struck too often, eventually strike back. When the corridor closed, the galaxy understood something at last. The rule was never about entry. It was about respect. And those who learned it lived. Those who didn't. It became a lesson. The corridor closed without ceremony. No light show. No warning pulse. Human space simply returned to stillness, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the galaxy was no longer the same. The evacuation through human territory saved billions. That fact alone shattered decades of political certainty. Species that had never agreed on anything now shared a single, uncomfortable realization. Humanity had seen this coming. In the Council archives, the stellar collapse was logged as an unpredictable anomaly. In human systems, it had been flagged generations earlier, modeled, and quietly prepared for. That difference haunted every strategist who studied the data. At emergency sessions across the galaxy, leaders asked the same question in different ways. How long have they been planning without us? How much do they know that we don't? And why didn't they tell anyone? The official answer was restraint. The real answer was worse. They did not trust the galaxy to listen. While diplomats argued, intelligence agencies worked in the shadows. Long-buried human artifacts were re-examined. Derelict stations once dismissed as wreckage were mapped again. Patterns emerged. Human infrastructure did not grow outward like empires. It grew inward, layer upon layer of redundancy. Fail-safes inside fail-safes. Systems designed to survive not just war, but abandonment. A senior analyst summarized it in a private briefing. They didn't build for victory, she said. They were built for endurance. Meanwhile, inside human space, something shifted. For the first time in centuries, long-dormant command networks reactivated beyond maintenance cycles. Watch stations that had only observed now exchanged information. Human fleets repositioned, not toward borders, but toward key internal nodes. Humanity had noticed something the galaxy had not. The barrier between known space and the unknown was thinning. Beyond the spiral arm, signals began to appear, faint, irregular, impossible to decode. Automated probes sent by non-human powers vanished without explanation. Entire regions fell silent. To the galaxy, it was a mystery. To humanity, it was familiar. In a deep command vault hidden beneath layers of warped space, senior human officers gathered. Their faces were calm, but the data streaming around them told a grim story. Pattern match confirmed, said one officer. It's the same signature. Different vector. A woman at the center of the chamber nodded slowly. Her uniform bore no rank insignia. Only a simple human symbol burned into the fabric. How long? She asked. Years, the analyst replied. Maybe decades. They're cautious. The woman exhaled. So were we. Human history replayed itself on the screens. Ghost images of past wars, extinction-level threats, and the moment humanity chose to seal its borders. We didn't close the door because we were afraid, she said. We closed it because we learned. Outside human space, the first signs of panic surfaced. Entire trading routes went dark. Colonies reported missing ships that never sent distress calls. Sensor arrays picked up movement that left no wake, no energy trail. The council convened again, this time without posturing. We need to ask them, one delegate said. Properly. Another hesitated. And if they refuse? Koresh, older now but sharper than ever, spoke from the observer's tier. They won't, he said. But you won't like the price. A formal request was prepared, every protocol followed, every cultural sensitivity observed. The envoy ship approached human space slowly, broadcasting intent continuously. At the border, it stopped and waited. The response came not as a voice, but as coordinates. A meeting place, deep inside human territory. The council hesitated. Human space was no longer just a border. It was a mystery layered with fear. But fear did not stop what was coming. The envoy crossed. What they found was not a throne room or fortress, but a command platform built into the shadow of a dead star. Human ships surrounded it, not in defensive formation, but in readiness. The human representatives appeared in person. No grand speeches. No threats. Just facts. You are seeing echoes of what found us first, the human commander said. We survived because we adapted faster than we expected. What is it? The envoy asked. The human paused. Intelligence, she said. Not artificial. Not biological. Something older. It consumes civilizations by learning them. Silence filled the chamber. You hid from it, the envoy whispered. We denied the data, the human replied. No transmissions. No predictable expansion. No noise. The envoy understood then. Human space was quiet on purpose. The border, the envoy said slowly. It's not just to keep others out. It's to keep attention away, the human said. From all of you. The galaxy reeled. All this time, humanity had not been hoarding safety. They had been shielding everyone else. The human commander's tone hardened. But that strategy is failing, she continued. You are louder now. Faster. Less cautious. And what happens, the envoy asked, when it arrives here? The human did not hesitate. We fight, she said, as we always have. But we won't do it alone again. The condition was simple. If the galaxy wanted humanity's protection, it would have to accept humanity's rules. No reckless expansion. No unchecked signaling. No wars that broadcast weakness into the dark. Some powers resisted immediately. Others listened. Before any agreement could be finalized, the unknown made its first undeniable move. A populated system vanished. Not destroyed. Erased. No debris. No radiation. No survivors. Just absence. Panic spread faster than any fleet. The human response was instant. For the first time in recorded memory, human warships crossed their own border in force. Not to invade, but to intercept. Their movement was not announced. But everyone felt it. Space bent as fleets repositioned with precision that defied physics. Human constructs unfolded from hidden dimensions. Old weapons were powered on for the first time in centuries. Across the galaxy, sensors picked up a signal, short, sharp, unmistakably human. A warning, not to their enemies, to their allies. We are engaging, the message said. Stay silent. Stay still. Survive. The galaxy watched in terrified awe as human space, once a sealed mystery, became an active front. And for the first time, humanity did not stand alone at the edge of the stars. They stepped forward, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the species that had already fought this war once, and refused to let the galaxy lose it twice. The battle had not yet begun, but the quiet was over. The first clash did not look like a battle. There were no opposing fleets lining up, no declarations, no charging weapons lighting the void. What appeared instead was absence. Human sensors detected it before anyone else could even define it. A region of space where probability collapsed inward, where light arrived late, where signals lost meaning before they finished transmitting. The thing did not move like a ship. It arrived like a correction. Human command identified it with an old name pulled from sealed archives, one never shared with the galaxy. The null presence. It was not a species. It was not a fleet. It was a process, where civilizations expanded too fast, too loud, too predictably. The null presence arrived and simplified them. It was not destroyed out of malice. It erased patterns, cultures, memory, complexity. Civilizations did not fall screaming. They vanished quietly. That was why humanity had survived the first encounter. They had learned to be unpredictable. Now, unpredictability was no longer enough. Human fleets deployed in layers the galaxy could barely comprehend. Some ships existed fully in real space. Others only partially. Some were nothing but mathematical distortions holding weapons that never fully manifested. To outside observers, it looked like chaos. To humans, it was choreography. Engagement window closing. A systems officer reported. Null presence adapting. At the center of the human formation, the commander watched probability models collapse and rebuild faster than most species could think. It's learned our silent strategy, she said. It knows we're here. That was new. Humanity has always survived by denying attention. Now attention was unavoidable. Execute phase echo, she ordered. Across multiple dimensions, human systems activated a tactic that had never been used at full scale. Fleets began broadcasting, not power signatures, not coordinates, but false histories. Entire simulated civilizations bloomed outward in controlled bursts. Fake expansion patterns, artificial empires, manufactured arrogance. The null presence reacted instantly. It turned toward the noise. That was the trap. Human strike elements did not attack the presence directly. They attacked its assumptions. Fields of engineered uncertainty disrupted its ability to learn. Every time it tried to map human behavior, the answer changed. For the first time in recorded existence, the null presence hesitated. That hesitation saved 3 systems. But hesitation was not defeated. The presence countered by splitting, not into ships, but into conceptual fragments. Zones of erasure began appearing simultaneously across dozens of sectors. The galaxy panicked. Human channels lit up with requests, demands, please. Human command ignored all of them. They focused. Casualty projections? The commander asked. Unacceptable, came the reply. Accept them anyway, she said. But not blindly. Humanity had made this choice once before. They would not let the galaxy burn to preserve themselves. But they would not die quietly either. A human weapon activated that no non-human sensor could fully perceive. It did not fire energy or matter. It fired causality. Localized timelines were severed and rethreaded. Regions that the null presence had erased were forcibly reasserted, not restored, but replaced with alternate survivable outcomes. To the galaxy, it looked like miracles. To humans, it was agony. Every use of the weapon shortened lives, burned neural pathways, aged operators in minutes. They used it anyway. Human crews rotated through command chairs knowing some would never stand up again. No one else pays this price, one officer whispered as her hands shook violently. Not again. The null presence recoiled. For the first time, it encountered resistance that did not behave like prey. It adapted again. This time, it targeted something new. Human allies. A border system belonging to a non-human species flared and vanished in a perfect sphere of nothingness. The message was clear. If humanity would not stand alone, the galaxy would bleed for it. Human command went still. Then the commander gave the order no one had wanted to hear. Open the vaults. Deep inside human space, ancient facilities awakened. Weapons designed during the First War, sealed not because they failed, but because they worked too well. Human fleets reconfigured into a formation no one had ever seen. It was not defensive. It was punitive. A broadcast went out, not to the galaxy, but to the null presence itself. Humanity spoke in a language it could understand. Pattern, pain, persistence. We are not noisy, the human message said. We are consequence. The strike was immediate, not an explosion, not erased. The null presence was forced into focus. For the first time, it had a boundary. Human weapons locked it in place, not physically, but conceptually. It could no longer simplify without resistance. And resistance learned. The null presence began to withdraw, not defeated, but wounded. As it pulled back beyond observable space, human fleets did not pursue. They held the line. The galaxy exhaled. Systems that should have died stabilized. Refugees returned to half-saved worlds. Entire species realized they still existed only because someone else had paid the cost. Human casualties were not announced. They never were. In the aftermath, the Council sent a message, carefully worded, filled with gratitude and fear. The human response was brief. This was containment, it said, not victory. The commander stood alone in the quiet of the command platform, staring at regions of space that still refused to behave normally. It will come back, an officer said softly. Yes, she replied. But now it knows us. And next time, the commander's expression hardened. Next time, she said, we won't just protect the line. Human space resealed itself. But now the galaxy knows the truth. The rule had never been about borders. It had been about readiness. Humanity did not close the door to keep others out. They closed it so they could be ready when something far worse knocked. The galaxy celebrated too early. Markets reopened. Evacuees returned home. Council broadcasts spoke of unity and survival. The phrase human intervention became shorthand for hope. Humanity did not join the celebration. Inside sealed systems, the cost of containment was being counted, not in ships lost, but in people broken. Operators who had bent causality were pulled from command chairs unable to recognize their own names. Medical bays filled with veterans who looked young but had aged decades and hours. Human space was quiet again, but it was a wounded quiet. And wounds attract attention. Fragments of the null presence still lingered beyond the edge of mapped space. Not attacking, watching, learning from the resistance it had encountered for the first time in its existence. Humanity knew the pattern. It always came back smarter. That knowledge forced a decision humanity had avoided since closing the door centuries earlier. They could not guard the galaxy alone anymore. In a secure chamber buried beneath layers of folded space, senior human leadership gathered. No banners, no titles, just faces lined with fatigue and resolve. "We cannot keep paying this price alone," one voice said. "We won't survive another full engagement without burning out," another added. A third, colder voice cut through them. "Then the galaxy must change." That was the problem. The galaxy did not like being told what to do, especially by a species it had once dismissed as dangerous primitives. But danger had a way of earning authority. The message humanity sent this time was not a warning. It was an ultimatum, broadcast across every known frequency, translated automatically, stripped of emotion. "Human space remains sealed," the message said. "But our responsibility does not. We will continue containment operations against the external threat. However, effective immediately, all signatory civilizations must comply with the following protocols." The galaxy listened. It had no choice. First, no uncontrolled expansion beyond mapped regions. Second, no high-energy signaling without human coordination. Third, no total war conflicts that generate mass predictive behavior. The meaning became clear quickly. The null presence learned by watching patterns. Empires expanding, fleets maneuvering, wars repeating the same shapes. The galaxy itself had been feeding it. Some powers resisted immediately. The Arcthal Union declared the demands an overreach. The Soren clans refused to limit their expansion. Several minor powers quietly ignored the message, assuming enforcement would be selective. They were wrong. Human enforcement did not look like an invasion. It looked like inevitability. Trade routes collapsed overnight, not sabotaged, but rerouted by subtle gravitational shifts that made old paths inefficient. Navigation systems began rejecting expansion vectors that violated protocol, as if the stars themselves refused to cooperate. No shots fired. No fleets deployed. Just consequences. Within weeks, the Arcthal Union's economy fractured. The Soren clans lost 3 expansion colonies to logistical failure without a single human ship appearing. The message was unmistakable. Humanity was not ruling. They were curating survival. The council convened in an emergency session, this time without cameras. Koresh stood again before them, older still, leaning on a support brace. "You wanted proof," he said. "You have it." A counselor slammed a limb against the platform. "This is control by force." Koresh met their gaze. "This is controlled by experience. You expect us to surrender autonomy?" Koresh shook his head. "No, you are surrendering ignorance." Outside the chamber, something else unfolded, something humanity had feared but prepared for. A rogue coalition, refusing all protocols, launched a mass signaling array. A beacon meant to attract allies, intimidate rivals, and declare independence from human oversight. The signal was loud. Predictable. The null presence reacted. It did not attack the beacon system. It attacked 3 systems near it. Civilian worlds. The galaxy froze. Human response was instant, but limited. Containment teams isolated the affected regions. 2 systems were partially stabilized. One was lost completely. For the first time since the intervention began, humanity failed to save everyone. The silence afterward was heavier than any battle. Human leadership addressed the galaxy again. "This is the cost of defiance," the message said. "Not because we punish it, but because the threat exploits it. We cannot protect those who make themselves targets." Anger flared across the stars. Accusations. Fear. Resentment. Then something unexpected happened. A minor species, the Valari, long ignored and politically weak, volunteered full compliance. They shut down expansion, reworked trade, adjusted military doctrine. Human advisors assisted quietly. Months passed. The Valari thrived. Their world stabilized. Their routes remained untouched. Their predictive profile flattened until the null presence ignored them entirely. The lesson was brutal and effective. One by one, civilizations complied, not out of loyalty, but survival. Human space remained sealed, but human influence spread everywhere, not as occupation, but as constraint. The galaxy became quieter, slower, less ambitious, and safer, for a time. Inside human command, long-range projections updated again. The null presence was adapting, slower now, cautious. But it's still coming. The commander stared at the models and spoke the truth no one wanted to hear. It's learning restraint. That was worse than aggression. Restraint meant it had understood humanity's strategy, which meant the next engagement would not be fought at the borders. It would be fought inside choices, inside ethics, inside the question of how much freedom the galaxy was willing to lose to survive. A new signal appeared at the edge of detection, unlike anything before it. Not erased, not attacked. Communication. The null presence had begun to speak, not in language, but in mirrored behavior. Controlled, selective, patient. Humanity recognized the shift immediately. The enemy was no longer testing defenses. It was testing resolve. The commander closed her eyes for a moment, then issued a quiet order. Prepare phase covenant. An officer stiffened. That's irreversible. Yes, she replied. So is extinction. Humanity had closed the door centuries ago to prepare for war. Now, they were preparing for something harder. A future where survival required the galaxy to change what it meant to be free. And the hardest part was still ahead. Because the next battle would not be fought in space. It would be fought in belief. And not everyone would accept the price of being saved. The first sign of phase covenant was not a weapon. It was an invitation. Across the galaxy, selected worlds received a private transmission, encrypted beyond normal standards, delivered without detectable carrier waves. Leaders opened it expecting demands or threats. They found a question instead. Do you want to survive as you are, or exist as something changed? No instructions followed. No deadline. Only coordinates. Few responded at first. Those who did were not the powerful empires or proud coalitions. They were border states. Wounded civilizations. Species that had already learned what loss felt like. They sent envoys. The meeting place was not inside human space. It hovered just outside the border, anchored in a region where physics felt negotiable. A structure unfolded there, vast but simple, more like a framework than a station. Humans called it a Concord platform. When the first non-human delegation arrived, they expected intimidation. They found transparency. Human representatives greeted them without ceremony. No guards in sight. No warships looming nearby. Only data. Entire star maps rotated slowly in the air. Predictive models showed futures branching and collapsing. Simulations demonstrated how small, repeated behaviors, trade surges, military buildups, broadcast signals, created patterns the null presence could consume. You are not being targeted because you are weak, a human analyst explained calmly. You are targeted because you are predictable. One delegate recoiled. Then you are asking us to abandon growth. No, the human replied. We are asking you to abandon noise. The difference was subtle and terrifying. Phase Covenant was not an alliance. It was a framework, a shared commitment to limit certain behaviors in exchange for human intervention priority. No expansion wars. No galaxy-wide arms races. No megastructures broadcasting across light years. Those who joined would not gain power. They would gain time. As word spread, resistance hardened elsewhere. The Arcthal Union accused humanity of engineering dependency. The Soren remnants are called Phase Covenant cultural erasure. Survival at the cost of identity is extinction by another name, one broadcast declared. Humanity did not reply. They let reality answer. A rival bloc attempted to demonstrate independence by launching a synchronized expansion push. New colonies, new fleets, new beacons lighting the dark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the null presence reacted, not violently, but surgically. It did not erase the new colonies. It erased the infrastructure connecting them. Supply chains collapsed. Communications unraveled. Fleets became stranded, alive but unsupported. Human containment teams intervened, only where Covenant members were involved. Others were observed and left. The galaxy noticed. Fear sharpened into calculation. More envoys arrived at the Concord platform. Phase Covenant grew. Inside human command, the atmosphere remained grim. This was not a victory. It was triumph. The commander watched the compliance metrics update in real time. Entire civilizations reshaped behavior within years, something humanity had once taken centuries to do. They're adapting faster than we did, an officer observed. Yes, she replied, because they've seen what happens if they don't. But even adaptation had limits. One species refused outright. The Zalari Compact, ancient, proud, and deeply philosophical. They believed the null presence was a cosmic correction, not an enemy. Interfering with it, their scholars argued, is prolonging decay. They declined covenant membership. Humanity respected the decision. They prepared contingency models. The null presence did not attack the Zalari immediately. I watched. It was learned. Then it spoke again, not through absence, but through structure. A region of space near Zalari territory reorganized itself into a pattern disturbingly similar to a human defense lattice. Not identical, but close enough to be unmistakable. The null presence was copying. Human command went silent. That's impossible, an analyst whispered. It shouldn't be able to. It can, the commander said. We taught it. Humanity had always known this was the risk. Every adaptation made the enemy smarter. Phase Covenant slowed the galaxy down, but the null presence was learning restraint, cooperation, and selective targeting. It was learning about civilization. The Zalari system vanished 3 days later. Not erased, replaced. Where a vibrant culture once existed, there remained a simplified echo, biological life reduced to repeating patterns, conscious but stripped of creativity. The horror of it spread faster than panic. Humanity responded by doing something unprecedented. They opened the door. For the first time in centuries, selected non-human leaders were invited into human space. Not to the border, not to observation zones, but to the inner sanctums where humanity planned for extinction-level events. What they saw broke them. Layered star systems designed to evacuate entire civilizations in weeks. Artificial habitats capable of supporting trillions. Libraries holding the preserved cultural records of species humanity had already lost, kept alive because someone had to remember them. You prepared to outlast us, one envoy whispered. No, the human replied. We prepared to carry you. That was the moment the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not withdrawn out of fear or arrogance. They had withdrawn to become something else. A species willing to sacrifice dominance, growth, and recognition in exchange for readiness. The commander addressed the gathered envoys directly. Phase Covenant is not enough anymore, she said. The null presence is evolving beyond containment. What are you proposing? A delegate asked quietly. The commander did not soften her answer. Integration. Silence followed. You want us to become human, someone said. No, she replied. We want you to become unpredictable. Humanity revealed the final truth of Phase Covenant. It was not about restriction. It was about diversity. The null presence consumed uniformity, civilizations that thought alike, expanded alike, fought alike. Humanity had survived by fracturing itself culturally, technologically, ideologically. They had been impossible to simplify. Phase Covenant was only the first step. The next required civilizations to embrace internal variation, decentralized power, divergent technologies, nonlinear growth. Chaos. Controlled chaos. Some envoys recoiled. Others leaned forward. That would destabilize everything, one said. Yes, the commander replied. Which is why it works. Outside the Concord platform, the stars shifted again. The null presence was moving, not attacking, not retreating. Observing. Evaluating. It had learned silence. Now it was a learning choice. Humanity knew what that meant. The enemy was approaching something dangerous. Understanding. The commander issued orders that echoed across human space. Begin Phase Covenant expansion, she said. Full spectrum. Prepare cultural dispersal protocols. Unlock preservation vaults. An officer hesitated. That means sharing everything. Yes, she said. Or we lose it all anyway. Humanity had guarded the door for centuries. Now, they were opening it. Not to invaders, but to allies who would never be the same again. The next stage of the war would not be fought with fleets. It would be fought with identity. And the galaxy would have to decide whether it was willing to become something unfamiliar, or be reduced to something simple enough to be erased. The stars watched. And for the first time, the null presence did not advance. It waited, learning. The first civilization to accept full integration broke itself on purpose. It was not a collapse. It was a controlled fracture. The Valari, once cautious, compliant, and quietly successful under Phase Covenant, made the decision publicly. Their leaders announced a radical restructuring, planetary autonomy, divergent technological paths, localized cultures allowed to evolve without standardization. To outsiders, it looked like chaos. To humanity, it looked familiar. Human advisors did not guide the process. They observed. They intervened only to prevent extinction, not discomfort. Within a decade, Valari space became impossible to model. Trade networks rerouted unpredictably. Military units adopted incompatible doctrines. Art, language, and even timekeeping splintered across their worlds. And the null presence lost interest. Its observation patterns shifted away from Valari territory, sliding toward regions still rigid, still optimized, still efficient. The data was undeniable. Uniformity attracted erasure. Diversity confuses it. That truth changed everything. Across the galaxy, debates turned violent, not with weapons, but with ideology. Entire governments split over whether survival was worth the loss of cohesion. Empires that had ruled for millennia faced rebellion not from the oppressed, but from strategists and scientists demanding fragmentation. Order is death became a whispered phrase. Humanity did not spread it. They did not need to. Reality did. Inside human space, preparations accelerated beyond anything attempted before. Preservation vaults opened, not just archives, but active cultural seeds. Languages, belief systems, art forms long thought obsolete. Humanity had never truly unified. They had learned, painfully, that unity made them visible. The null presence had nearly erased early human civilization when it detected a single dominant pattern emerging. Human survival had come from divergence. Now, humanity was exporting that lesson. But exporting knowledge came with risk. The null presence noticed the change. Its behavior shifted again, not toward aggression, but toward mimicry. In regions near its influence, civilizations began to change, incorrectly. They fragmented without intention, without control, without understanding. The result was not diversity. It collapsed. Human analysts watched in horror as entire species shattered into incompatible factions, tearing themselves apart faster than the null presence ever could. The commander stood before the projections, jaw tight. "This is our fault," an officer said quietly. "We taught them the wrong lesson." The commander nodded. Chaos alone isn't enough. Humanity had survived because their chaos was anchored by memory, empathy, and restraint. Without that anchor, fragmentation was just decay. The galaxy had misunderstood. Humanity responded immediately. Phase Covenant was amended. Integration now required one more condition: preservation of care. Civilizations were allowed, even encouraged, to diverge, but never to abandon mutual survival. No faction could grow by erasing another. No belief system could justify annihilation. That rule was non-negotiable. Some civilizations rejected it. They believed survival demanded dominance. The null presence agreed. Those civilizations vanished next. Not erased by humanity. Not saved either. The line had been drawn. For the first time, humanity allowed something to die on principle. That decision haunted them. Inside human command, dissent grew. "We are deciding who deserves to exist," one officer said. "That makes us no better than it." The commander did not argue. She simply replied, "We are deciding who is willing to exist together." The null presence reacted in a way no model predicted. It did not strike next. It approached. Across human sensors, a structure began to form. Not a ship, not a void, but a boundary of interaction. Space folded inward, creating a region where the presence and human constructs could coexist without erasing each other. A negotiation zone. Humanity froze. "This could be a trap," an analyst warned. "Yes," the commander said. "So was our first contact with the galaxy." The presence did not speak. It reflected. Human behaviors are replayed in distorted form: fragmentation, cooperation, sacrifice. The presence attempted to simplify them. It failed. For the first time in its existence, it encountered a system it could not reduce without losing information. That failure mattered. Humanity realized something terrifying. The null presence was not evil. It was efficient, and efficiency had limits. The commander authorized a response no one expected. Communication. Not a message. An offering. Humanity projected a curated fragment of itself into the negotiation zone. Not weapons, not history, but contradiction. Art without purpose. Stories with no morals. Cultures that thrived on disagreement. The presence absorbed the data. It paused. In that pause, entire systems across the galaxy stabilized. The presence withdrew slightly, not in defeat, but in reconsideration. Human analysts stared at the readings in disbelief. "It's slowing," one whispered. "It's thinking," another corrected. That was worse. A thinking eraser could choose. The commander spoke the truth aloud. If it learns to value complexity, it may decide we are worth preserving. And if it doesn't, then it will learn how to erase us properly. The galaxy stood on the edge of a new threshold. Survival was no longer about hiding or fighting or even adapting faster. It was about convincing something older than stars that existence was messy enough to justify. Humanity had closed the door centuries ago to prepare for war. Now, they were holding it open, just long enough to argue with extinction itself. The stars did not answer, but they did not go silent either. And that uncertainty, the refusal of the universe to simplify, might be the most human victory of all. The war was no longer about who would survive. It was about what survival meant. And for the first time, the galaxy understood the final rule humanity had always lived by. To exist is not to endure quietly. It is impossible to finish. The presence lingered, watching, learning, and deciding.